this is not like a lecture of any sort. We just wanted to make ourselves available and interact with you guys and hear what's on your hearts and what your questions are and what you've been struggling with, or maybe you've hit a wall in certain areas and you need some ideas. We just want to share. We're going to share some of our story, and along the way we'll ask for we'll probably have times of question related to certain topics. We'll try to keep maybe the questions relative to the topic at hand as we go through, and then obviously open it up for any questions at the end for sure if we haven't touched on that.
That's good.
Does that sound good to you?
Sounds great.
Yeah. But let's just take a quick poll. So who's here interested in learning more about just the natural birth experience, home birthing, that kind of realm of things?
Anybody?
So one hand. So, okay. And then going out of that stage of birth more into like the breastfeeding and weaning stage of life. Raise your hand if that's kind of what your interest is in weaning, first foods for babies. How do you feed an infant? That's kind of like, okay. So a few hands. And then as soon as they start to fully get their teeth in and they're eating, now you have the basics of what does a nutritious diet look like with a child who's running and climbing and jumping off the walls.
Right.
So lots of hands on that one. Okay. Any other like major topics that I didn't mention just now?
Just this general topic of raising kids naturally. What would you want to hear about?
Any other topics that you're like burning in your heart? Just shout it out.
I think easy, because I have a big family. My youngest is 5, but just transitions from healthy diet choices to more healing or better diet choices. Especially if you do have a larger family or just trying to. Right. There's the economics of it, but there's also just the trying to what are some good segues to you're going to be eating this, and then you can transition to this, and kind of helping kids get used to. In some ways, it's like having it's. Like I had my littles healthier when they were little, but they hit that really tough toddler phase, and with a big family, we just lost the track. So it's getting them back on track is what I'm saying.
Sure. So doing it with big families and dynamics of the young.
Yeah. Our family's not big enough yet to answer that.
Well, and it doesn't have to be big family. It could be anyone that's trying to go from this diet to that. So
totally.
Yeah. Any other biggies related to raising kids naturally, like vaccines or any other major topics?
I'm probably a grandma here, but that's okay. I'm kind of concerned about the actual pregnancy and what you do. There's stuff coming out now that says that the mother is responsible for the autism in the children and the babies. Wow. And so some more like, healthy diet, or what is it that you do during your pregnancy? You make a healthy pregnancy, a safe delivery, and a healthy, holy little baby.
Sure.
That's fine.
Well, maybe that's where we start.
Sure.
So I guess that is kind of the beginning.
It kind of starts before you get pregnant.
Yeah. So why don't you start with that?
Okay. Child at the time of birth, and not only during the time of birth, but also during the pregnancy itself. That little child is out there just tumbling around here and getting the cord around his neck and all kinds of stuff like that. So anyhow.
Okay, so when we first got into this, I don't know. Do we want to tell our story about how we first got into this?
Sure, whatever you want to say.
I don't even know where that starts. Where did that start?
Related to, I'm not quite sure what you're asking me.
I'm not sure. Well, okay, so let me just answer kind of that question because it really starts before birth. And I would say my first experience of learning this type of information, because it's not normal to our world, was actually Weston A. Price and a book he wrote called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. And he actually was a dentist in the 19-teens and 1920s, and he traveled around the world and he lived with indigenous cultures. And he found that they were not only did not have problems getting pregnant, but they were like extremely fertile, and the birthing process, you know, not saying it was easy because I would get in a lot of trouble, but you know, women gave birth relatively, what would be the word?
Without complications.
Without complications. Without complications, and quick deliveries and quick healing time, and you know, that was the norm. And he talked about how these ancient cultures, now we're talking cultures of people who lived off of the land, off of God's natural creation. We're not talking about a culture of fast food and junk food and chips and donuts and candy and soda, okay? So these ancient cultures so revered birth and pregnancy and life that they actually discovered certain foods that they reserved only to give to the pregnant women so that they would have the most powerful nutrition, because that's how much they valued the life of this new child coming. And so a healthy baby and healthy pregnancy starts before you get pregnant. And I tell women all the time, because I have a lot of women, you know, I see a lot of women that come in, and of course a lot of women are having trouble, or I should say couples are having trouble getting pregnant. They're having trouble with fertility. And they know they have health issues. And I know that I can recommend certain things that may get them pregnant. But I always implore them, and I think they really understand and often want to get healthy sometimes before they even get pregnant, because again, we understand the importance of the responsibility of stewardship of a new, you know, bringing a new life into this world. And babies are born with complications. And so, you know, I had a woman, I just this last week did a saliva hormone test on, she can't get pregnant. The minimum low level, the low end progesterone is 76, and her progesterone was 19. And so, you know, that's very likely one of the reasons, at least one of the reasons she's not getting pregnant. But she doesn't want, I don't want to just give her a progesterone cream and have her get pregnant tomorrow, because she's not healthy. She's not well. There's a reason your progesterone is that low. Hey, little buddy. So,
cute.
you know, I really encourage women today to think about their family before pregnancy. If we can get teenage girls, you know, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old girls to get it, and to want to go for health and want to understand that, you know, God and stewardship of the body and the value of life, it might be enough motivation to turn them away from the world of processed junk and eating for pleasure that has destroyed people. And so we really have a heart to get to the children, get to the teenagers. Even if you're 33 and you can't get pregnant and you've been married for 5 years, you can get your health back and you can get pregnant. We see it all the time. We see all kinds of women who can't get pregnant. They've been married for 5, 6 years, and they do some things and they get pregnant. And I always tell people, like, women, you're designed to give birth. Like that is how God made you. That's very important. That is your inheritance, to have children, and you will. And I tell that to women. I'm like, you will get pregnant and you will have a baby. I'm that confident in God, not myself, but just his creation and how he designed women. So it starts before birth. We should value it. We should cleanse all the things we kind of talked about earlier in the classes. We should understand nutrition. We should cleanse and detoxify. We should balance our hormones. You know, we've gone way wrong in a lot of things, but you know, God's a quick healer. If we can change our ways and kind of go back to health and healing our bodies, and then we'll start to have healthy children.
Yeah.
So,
because I think that's something that I didn't really fully understand. I think it's not really a common knowledge, is that the child that comes out of the mom is basically a picture of the mom's toxic load. And that was very real to me with my first child, because when I married Vaughn, we went on our honeymoon and we're like, you know, we'll talk about family planning later. And we came home pregnant, you know, it's like, it was just like, oh, I didn't think that would happen so quickly, but it did. And well, if you had gone back 6 months prior, I had not been planning to necessarily get pregnant, and I had gotten all of my mercury fillings taken out of my mouth. And I had done a partial heavy metal cleanse, but not a significant one. And when my daughter was born, I mean, it was like she could not sleep. She could not sleep. This child never slept. And by the time she was 2, she couldn't walk more than a mile. And she was clambering on her legs and, Mommy, my legs hurt, my legs hurt, my legs hurt. Carry me, hold me, hold me. I think I heard that sentence, hold me. Like, you know, you want to hold your child, but then there's a point where like, I am not going to hold you anymore. And I'm like, Vaughn, something in my knower, so there's something not right in my 2-year-old, and I feel like there's something off. We need to do something. We need to do a test. And here we are, the health people, you know, and I'm like, we got to do a test on my little girl. So we do a hair test, and it comes back, and I look at the chart, and when I see the mercury and it goes off the page, I'm like, that's it. And I know that she was exposed to the mercury because it was in my tissues when I got pregnant. And so that was for me a clear sign that what I have in my body is passing on. She didn't get that mercury from her house. She wasn't sucking on thermometers or whatever, you know. She got it from me. So what else did she get from me? I'm sure lots of other stuff, but that was the biggest for us, was like, wow, this is real. This is the proof in the pudding. You can't, you know, you couldn't make that up on your own. So this is what's really happening with our kids, is they're coming out, they're not just, you know, they're not a blank slate. And that's one of the real reasons that we are strong against vaccines, is because when you take 3 children and you take them and you give them all a vaccine, they don't all have the same reaction. And it's because you're not putting a vaccine into the same place of every child's coming into that vaccine at a different place. So where's the threshold for what the body can tolerate for toxicity is going to be expressed differently on each child. If I had vaccinated my child, both of us firmly believe that we could have lost the light in our daughter's eyes. We believe that because we didn't know when she was born at 2 days old that she had mercury toxicity higher than anyone he's ever seen in an adult or a child. When we did the consultation with because I wanted to be in on the consult, we call the company and he does a consult with the people who do our lab testing. The guy on the phone said, how did a 2-year-old get this much mercury? He's never seen it this high. I mean, he was just shocked. And the fact, well, let's say he was shocked that she was operable at the level that she was with that much toxicity. And we're like, it's because we've been fighting for her from the very beginning. We have let nothing go into her mouth that would be congesting to her body. We've tried as hard as we could to keep her diet clean, and we did no vaccines. We just tried to keep her as untouched as possible. And so that is, I guess I'm just kind of hitting the vaccine thing right away, but I just feel really firm about it because I really do feel that I feel that our children are being harmed, and as a mom, it's really hard to see that. And when I could have been, you know, doing the same thing unknowingly to my child, it's not that any parent wants this for their children. They're just it's a lack of knowledge. And so we just have to be honest with ourselves that our children are being born compromised because of the toxic loads that we carry as moms. And it's just the way it is. You know, we can't change it. We can't wish it away. But in the sense that we can change it through action, but we can't change it through just, you know, our own mind going, okay, I'm not going to let this pass to my child. But we can take actions and steps to detoxify ourselves, get healthy through nutrition, and bring vitality back into our life, in our bodies, so that we can pass it on to our children and their children. Because when I'm looking at my little girls, I'm already thinking, you know, I want to get them strong so that they can be ready for children and have healthy babies too.
You had a question?
Can you please define toxic load?
Define toxic load. Want me to define toxic load?
Go for it.
Okay.
What's toxic level?
So you just mean like what
What's
Like what kind of toxins or?
what's the level of like what's the tipping scale? Is that what you mean? Like when do you?
Like what causes it and what is its effect on it?
Yeah, I mean, when we say toxic load, we're talking about foreign contaminants in the human body that aren't supposed to be in the human body. So mercury was never designed to be in the human body. Aluminum wasn't designed to be in the human body. Parasites weren't designed to be in the human body. So these are all toxins that affect normal function of a human being. Affect the nervous system, affect the brain, affect the digestion, affect the organs negatively. So toxic load would just, and every child's different, like she was saying, in their quote unquote toxic load. Because a child who is raised with allergies and they have ear infections and they're struggling with digestive issues, that child has a toxic load. It's not a normal part of childhood. Sometimes we think, oh, well, that's just being a kid. No, that's being like having a toxic load. Like we just weren't told that. But then you have an autistic child. Clearly, there's a more intense and a higher toxic load, especially of like some potentially a specific toxin causing the majority of those issues, which a lot of times is a heavy metal or is an infectious disease or something like that. Does that kind of explain it?
Well, I guess the question to that is then, like obviously through birth, I think, but how does our diet introduce those things to our body?
How does our diet introduce those things? Yeah.
So it's environment. Anything can be absorbed into the body through breath, through your skin, through your nasal passages, also through your digestion, or through injection if it was like a vaccination of some sort. Or
there's 70,000 man-made chemicals that they now put in our foods. So the food dyes, the food colorings, the aspartame, the genetically modified organisms that are contrary to life. These are things we're eating and putting into our body that destroy our bodies, but especially our children because they're so vulnerable. So that's how it enters into our food. So.
Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides.
Yep. Right. Yep.
I just want to make a comment about the mercury in your mouth. It's very important to go to a doctor who's actually going to remove the mercury properly. With a little, they have a little, well, Dr. Badcock, I'm sure does it, but I know Dr. Ferguson does. But they put a thing in the back of your throat, like a sponge, and they use a little vacuum cleaner, and they clean out the mercury out of your mouth. And it all goes into this outside thing. And it's, they have to have a biohazard person from the county department, health department, to get that, because that's against the law. And then they put the mercury in babies' vaccines. Can you believe that? But anyhow, I want to emphasize that because that's really important. When my brother went and had his mercury taken out of his mouth, the doctor didn't do any of that. And when the doctor finished taking the mercury out of his mouth, he gave it to him and put it in his hand. He said, that's all the mercury I took out of your mouth. And the thing is, according to what I read, you can, just in the time that the doctor is taking the mercury out of your mouth, it's worth 10 years of mercury exposure to your body. Yeah. So I don't know how you had yours done, but
yeah, I actually had it done by the best possible way, but it's still the exposure that's right. It's just you can only hope for the best, and I actually had it by the specialist, Dr. Ferguson here, and it was the best of the best, but I still was exposed, and I should have probably waited for a year, maybe taken a lot more conscious effort to do some heavy metal detoxing before I would have conceived. So
hold on, Angela. Sorry, 1 second. I want this to be an open forum, but we are recording this, so let's just stick to questions, because if you give a long commentary, that's the microphone isn't picking that up, so nobody's hearing, what we're saying. So let's just stick to questions tied to this specifically. I think that would just be helpful, if that's okay. Did you have a question?
Yes, so can it be on anything, children, family?
Yeah, that's fine.
Two, so you guys refer to Weston fries, but I know that they're big on like dairy meat, but then
Right.
you're saying like 80 to 90%, like kids could eat 80 to 90% vegetables.
Right.
And I feel like if I go to like Sprouts, I could pick every vegetable, but like 2 hours later, we're like starving. I mean, or like we have cauliflower rice or a big salad, and like at like 7, it's like, what are we eating for dinner now? Or we've already eaten dinner, but we're just, so how do you practically do that in a way that, and what, like how much protein should you actually have in your diet? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, because I think I get stuck with like, eat a lot of protein and then don't do a lot of veggies. And does it look different for kids versus what our bodies eat as adults?
Sure.
All of that.
Those are good questions. We could really get into the nutrition aspect.
Yeah, well, why don't we start with just like
Okay.
some of the weaning foods and
Okay.
Weston A. Price is, let's
Yeah.
just talk about Weston A. Price for a minute because we lived Weston A. Price for a while.
Wow. Yep.
In the beginning, when before we kind of discovered the toxicity of my daughter, we were like Weston A. Price all the way because he had read the book and we really believed in the foundations of what he believed as well, and we still do. However, the Weston A. Price Foundation, and I'll just say our opinion on this,
Sure.
we feel has taken it to the extreme. We feel like they took on the whole fat and meat thing and they just went crazy on it to the point where we went to one of the conferences, they'll mock vegetables.
Yeah,
and
they made fun of eating vegetables and juicing and greens. I mean, literally made a mockery of it. I was shocked.
they called them great avenues for eating butter. And we were kind of like, oh, this isn't really fitting our...
Something's wrong here.
We couldn't fit into it, but it was just like we weren't sure if we were ready to abandon it. So we've kind of been waffling with it, honestly, for a couple years going, is this right? We like his work, but is the foundation true to his work? And personally, we feel like it's not. And we feel like we've just kind of gone away from just so much of what they promote to the point where we're like, we really just want to be in balance with what God's foods are. And when you look at the planet of what God's given us, he's actually given us way more fruits and vegetables in abundance than nuts and seeds, which are very hard to actually get into, and meat, which, was, and if we want to go into the biblical...
Go kill your own animal, you'll find out how hard it is.
Yeah, I mean, so we do you want to kind of talk about what our philosophy on just diet and nutrition is, just briefly?
Yeah, let me give you a concept. Now, this might just be a seed that might not grow for quite a few years from now, but I'm going to give you a concept of just where I feel the Lord's leading us in this. And again, this is just because it's all our own journey, I feel like the main reason we need food is energy. But we actually are designed to live off of God, spirit, oxygen, sunshine, water, the things we're not very good at getting, honestly, in our world today. So food is energy, okay? So the weaker your energy and the lower your energy, the more food you need, the more stimulation you need. Does that make sense? So our bodies are weaker, our health is weaker, we're not in the sun very much, our hormones are out of whack. You need more food because that's stimulant energy. People think they need coffee because that's stimulant energy. People eat meat, you feel amazing because it's stimulant energy. So what we found as we work on our health and fight for our health, we'll go a whole day, we'll eat 2 pieces of fruit and a little smoothie, and we're cranking away and all of a sudden it's dinner. And they might be starving at dinner, but I tell you what, they'll eat whatever we put in front of them, and they don't whine about it. You know what I mean? So I have found that as you work on getting healthier, as you work on balancing your hormones, you're getting energy from other sources like the sun and other things, and living foods. Like we're talking about fruit and greens and salads. You drink a good green juice in the morning, you're like, boop, awake, alert. Who's experienced that? It feels amazing. And so I think I'm just kind of giving you that concept. because this whole like we should eat all day and eat 6 meals a day, that comes from a weak body. That comes from poor sugar metabolism, low blood sugars, low blood pressure. That comes from health problems,
And that
not
goes-
because that's a good way to eat.
Let me jump in real quick.
Yes.
It goes in tandem with what we just had, the enzyme, if anyone was here for the enzyme
Yes.
talk. It goes right in hand with what he was saying, is that, really like if you were to look at the standard American type of diet, it takes 70% of your energy to metabolize that food during the day.
Right.
And so that is a lot of energy going to just digestion.
Right.
And could we be actually using our energy for something different and actually aiding to our energy by choosing foods that are high in enzymes, that supply their own enzymes, that don't tax our own body's supply?
Right.
And so,
So just for example, if you go, I'll just give you a rough example. To answer part of your question and what you were saying, start with transitioning towards more fruits and vegetables. Start towards eating more raw living foods, because like we learned in the enzyme talk, when you eat a raw food, all the enzymes are in that food to digest it. It doesn't take extra effort away from your body to digest it. Okay, I've experienced this. We've experienced this. I've eaten raw. I did a fruit fast not too long ago. I did a week straight on fruit. Felt amazing. Went to a very healthy place and had a very healthy cooked warm quinoa bowl with quinoa and kale and vegetables. And I told Jen, I said, I feel like I got hit by a truck. I felt so tired and so lethargic because I'd been eating raw living foods, felt amazing, and all of a sudden I ate this cooked meal that just made my body go, meow. Now that sounds weird to most of us, or extreme, but I'm just letting you know, like, we can work towards this place of needing less food, needing less heavy food by transitioning to more raw foods and specifically more fruit. That's one thing we're finding out. We did this last summer pretty good, and we're really focused on it this summer. But fruit is high energy without any effort on digestion. So you can really keep your energy levels up and feeling good with eating fruit. It's very hydrating. It's immediate sugar for your cells, for your brain. I think fruit's the best bioavailable source of high-level energy that we can put in our bodies. And if you think about the Garden of Eden, what did Adam and Eve have? That was mainly the main food, I believe.
So when we did our weaning for our children, if you looked at what we weaned our first daughter on, when we were really heavy into the Weston A. Price philosophy, and you look at what I'm weaning my son on, who's 14 months, it is like night and day. My daughter in the middle kind of got the tweener of the two. She was like we were like getting away from that, and I was like trying to figure out, okay, if I'm not doing that, what am I doing, And so we were doing with Naomi, we were doing the bone broth every day, and we were doing all cooked foods, all high fat, blending in meats.
Raw dairy.
By the time she was like 1.5, like she was so bloated.
Oh my gosh. She had
And I was like,
tummy.
this is just not right. And I'm like doing everything that they say to do. And I'm like, her intelligence was good and her mile markers were good. But I just felt like she wasn't digesting well. As soon as we started shifting away from the heavy fat diet and we started bringing in more of the plant-based foods and less fat and less heavy protein, boy, like you look at her now and she just
looks like me.
Her body type, yeah, she looks like Vaughn, but 3 feet tall. I mean, no more bloating, no more big. I mean, if she was getting in the bathtub, I'm like, she could be a little pregnant right now. Like it just didn't look right to me as a mom. I just, again, your kids, and you kind of have that little knower go off inside of you sometimes when you're like, something's not right. So what I've now transitioned to is more of a enzyme-rich weaning protocol with my children. So I choose fruits that are high in enzymes, like tropical fruits. So bananas, pineapple, mango,
berries.
I don't do the berries right away, like at the gate, because berries do have some pectin and they're a little bit harder to digest. I bring those in maybe around a year, but you know, early on in the very beginning, I was doing the banana, the pineapple, and the mango, like really, like that was some of his first foods. You know, and I would do some avocado for a little, you know, substance, and I still did. I mean, it was winter. I was making soup for our family. I was still doing the chicken homemade bone broth with some vegetables, but it wasn't like every single meal every single time. It was just most of the time mixed in like one meal a day, and the rest was mostly some of the fruit, high enzyme, high hydrating foods. I mean, the last thing you want is your baby constipated. You know, that's just like terrible for them, and terrible for you because you're probably not going to get good sleep as a mom. But so the high enzyme foods is where I started shifting to, and then bringing in what we call the fruit veggies, which are veggie fruits, which are going to be your cucumbers. I would take the peels off of my cucumbers. I give him those chopped up. Anything that's easy to and high watery and easy to chew. Now, like right now, he's just slamming watermelon like crazy.
He'll eat a whole mango like.
Oh, he'll eat one of those Tufalo mangoes like just all by himself. Yeah. And so that is what my picture of weaning Lau has started to look like.
But she does give him. He's 14 months. She does give him sauerkraut. And we do
fermented
roasted vegetables. So he'll eat the beets and the roasted sweet potatoes. And you know, we're not like vegetarian, vegan. You know, we're not there. And if we even went there, we probably wouldn't put a label on ourselves. But you know, he probably has fish once a week. You know, chicken maybe once a week.
Yeah, we'll do some eggs.
We barely eat eggs anymore, but once in a while. So it's meat's kind of one of those things where it's like we eat it when we feel like having it. It's not like, oh, you got to have meat. It's got to be a staple every day. We got to eat it 2 times a day. Or it's also not the mindset that our kids aren't going to get protein, and they're certainly not going to grow if they don't eat meat, which is complete fallacy.
So a good representation of how much protein do we need. So when you look at what mother's milk is actually made of, it's mostly carbohydrate and sugar.
Yep, number one.
And then fat. And it's only 2% protein.
No, it's less than 1% protein.
Oh, sorry.
It's like 0.098% protein.
I'm wrong.
There's almost no
listen to the expert here.
So these babies are growing, but it's not because of the protein in the breast milk.
And my son went from birth at 7 or 8 pounds to like 20 pounds. And he gained so much weight so quickly. He gains faster than all of my kids. And this was my 3rd pregnancy, and I do feel like I was less toxic, you know, more fruit in my diet during pregnancy, more hydrated. I just felt like my whole every pregnancy, I feel like honestly has gotten better and better and better. And when you talk to most women who aren't maybe tracking nutritionally and doing some of these things, honestly, what do they mostly say? My pregnancies got worse and worse and worse. It got harder and harder. Their nausea gets worse and their health gets worse. Mine has actually gone the opposite direction because I started off kind of, you know, in this place, figuring it out. And I've just, with applying all the things we've done, it's gotten better with every time. And so, anyway, you know, I do feel like it is a fallacy that we have to eat these massive amounts of protein. I think that it's great for sustenance when we need it.
Winter, you might have more, and that's okay, you know.
And I don't think that it needs to be every meal. Personally, in my own health journey, I've been working on different areas of my body that I can tell have been congested, and kidneys is one of my struggles. It's been a struggle for me for years. Like even before meeting Vaughn, I just had lots of kidney issues, and when I eat meat, I do notice it now that it does affect and kind of bring a burdensome because of the high acidity of the meat, and the kidneys have to break down those you know, kind of filter out those proteins and stuff. So I personally, after taking some time away from meat and then integrating it back in, if I go too much, all of a sudden I start to notice it. So to me, I'm like, is this food a life-bringing food that I need to do 3 times a day, or is it just something that I can use as I need it to sustain myself and keep me on track, you know, as I need it through pregnancies or nursing or whatnot.
And I just want to, Jen will laugh at this, so I'm just prefacing that, but it doesn't have to be all or nothing, because I'm an all or nothing kind of guy. But I think that's the mindset we have sometimes, is that, oh, we should be eating this way, let's do that. and you're trying to figure out how to get from here to here, and you don't realize that you can just go like this instead of trying to go like this, which is just like torture to your head, mind, and your family, and the stress, and the kids, and and so I just think, understand that it's a process, it's a journey, it's going to look different for your family, but it doesn't have to be all or nothing, and it doesn't have to happen overnight, and you just work at it slowly. That's what we love about fruit, honestly, since we've gotten more excited about fruit, and I'm not scared of it anymore. For 4 or 5 years in health, I was scared of it because everybody says it's bad and you eat too much and it feeds cancer and all this kind of stuff, but it doesn't. I've learned there's a lot of myths out there related to the fruit. Now you got to be smart about what you're doing, and there are some nuances to it. We can talk about it if you want, but what's cool about it is fruit tastes good, and you can get your kids to eat fruit, and if you can get your kids better eating fruit, that's awesome. Because if you're trying to get your kids to get better by forcing them to eat broccoli and Brussels sprouts and they hate it, like that's torture. You know what I mean? Eat this green drink. It's got kale in it. It's gross. I don't care. It's good for you. That's just really hard, because you might maybe get them a little bit better healthy, but physically, but you so scarred them emotionally, it'll probably affect them their whole life, right? And as soon as they get away from you, they're going to go eat donuts. No, I'm just kidding. So, you know what I'm saying? I just think that we're fine. We feel like the Lord's leading us into there's better ways.
Yeah. So there's something that Vaughn and I have been kind of talking different lingo, as we're evolving, just with our family and everything, is that there's times for a healthy diet and then there's times for a healing diet. Mm-hmm. And so we have to not confuse the two. So a healthy diet might look like, fruit for snacks, fruit for breakfast, maybe some, tuna or some veggies for lunch. Maybe you make a homemade vegetable dip or something like that. Or maybe in the evening you do some roasted vegetables and some, baked chicken or roasted chicken or whatever. So this is a healthy diet. But if you're struggling with one of your children and you're up against a health challenge, most likely you're not going to get this huge breakthrough just doing the healthy diet. And that's hard to sometimes, take in. You've cut out all the junk, you've done it all, and you're like, why aren't we getting the breakthrough? And honestly, it's because those are still burdensome to a toxic body that's congested. And we have had to learn that, unfortunately, kind of the hard way for us too. We have to go, man, we have to take it even deeper? Really? Yes, deeper. And when you look around the world, at the healing centers in the world, they're not doing fat in these places where you go to get your, where you go to do your cleanse or whatever it is. There's no fat, there's no meat, and they simply do fruits or vegetables and greens. And so for the healing. Yeah, so for a healing diet, if that's what you're feeling that you want to go after, there may be seasons where you go into a healing diet, and the summer is the best time. And for our girls, and for especially Naomi, we're working on how do we navigate seasons of healing diets and seasons of healthy diets. The winter, we're in a healthy diet, okay? December is crazy. Yes. It's crazy every year, it seems like. And so I may not suggest trying to do a healing diet in December, but I would say go for it in April and May and June. Get some watermelons from the farmer's market and just do as much watermelon as possible. Go until they can't even, they're just like, Mom, I'm done. I'm off the table. I'm out of here. That's too much watermelon for me, So I just wanted to throw that concept out.
Yeah, and I don't know, this just dropped in my spirit, so I felt like I wanted to share it, because I want to instill and impart this into our children at a young age, and they are blank slates for what you teach them, okay? And so if your kids are addicted to junk food, it's because of the things you've introduced them to, right? So, our girls, and I do a lot of fasting, and I'm always experimenting with different things. And Naomi knew that I was doing a fruit fast, and she said on her own, I didn't say anything to her. She goes, Dad, after the health fair, I want to do a carrot juice fast. My 5-year-old daughter said, I want to do a carrot juice fast. Now, I don't know if she fully knows what that looks like, and if she really understands that she's going to make it more than one day on carrot juice only. We will
An hour.
We will see. However, the seed has been planted in her, okay? And here's what's even cooler. I said when we fast, the reason we do that is because we're focusing on God and not other things. And it's an opportunity to see what God has for us and wants for us in our life. And my daughter said, well, good, I'm going to fast on carrot juice, and I'm going to ask God what type of leader I'm going to be for people in this world. And I was like, whoa, you're 5, okay? This is the generation that's coming, okay?
Yeah.
So it's just exciting, because I just felt like I wanted to share that.
Yeah.
So
I just have some practical thoughts about how do we implement this as moms. So in my mind, what I would think about, and this is in your resource guide, I'm sure there's lots of, I don't have one, so maybe I could.
oh, can we have one of the guides?
Does anybody,
Okay.
I can kind of poke around in it. So, so I always like to keep the morning light because the body is actually still in kind of a state of like detoxifying. So your body at night rests and all the organs do their thing. And so that's why it's good to stop eating at 8 o'clock at night, which I'll be honest is like
More like 6:37 at the latest, ideal.
yes,
Right?
for sure.
We're epic fail on that.
We're
just
epic.
gonna be really transparent with you guys.
It's so
Okay?
hard. It's like the kids are in bed. Oh,
That's
should we
part of
have a
relaxing.
moment together of like, oh, there maybe I'll have something out of the refrigerator without someone crawling on me. But it is our goal. It is the goal to stop eating, at an earlier part in the evening. Let your body clean out during the night. And then honestly, I personally try to go as long as I can in the morning before eating. And I know that sometimes is like, so we've been told, at least my generation was told, breakfast is your most important meal of the day. It's most important to not eat
Yes.
that meal of the day.
It might be the most important meal if you're going to work in a field for 10 hours. But
Yeah.
if not, it's not really the most important meal of the day.
Yeah, so we really try to keep it light in the morning, and we really just do fruit. And I really believe that that's possible. And I think that if you do, and you don't have to hinder it, not like, okay, here's 3 slices of apple, Johnny, go play. Like, give them a whole apple. Give them a bowl of berries. Just go for it. Or maybe it's just watermelon, like epic amounts of watermelon. Or it's a smoothie. Now, smoothie might be a more viable option for, you're going to head to the zoo. You want to just feel like a little more substance. So we gave you guys some of our 5 favorite kid smoothies. And I think smoothies are great for families. I mean, because you could whip up like 2 huge Vitamix blenderfuls and everybody gets their serving.
Yeah.
And then you could kind of throw in maybe, whatever their favorites are, and maybe they get involved in it. Maybe they're making it, and that kind of takes ownership. I think anytime kids make something, they're more likely to actually eat it because they feel proud of what they've just done.
Sure.
So I would say practically look at some of the smoothies for breakfast, or just consider fruits. We do a trick with our kids where we kind of like, I don't know, I'm from Hawaii, so we have these acai bowls. I don't know if anybody's familiar with these smoothie bowls is what they kind of look like. But we tend to, and if you could even take down the liquid portion of these a little bit, and you can get these thicker kind of consistency of smoothies that you can literally eat with a spoon.
Yes.
And we put fun toppings on them sometimes.
Our girls always, when we make a smoothie, we make them thick because they like to eat it with a spoon, and they always ask for snowflakes on it. You know what snowflakes are? Coconut. They love the snowflakes.
So we put snowflakes, or you could put some fresh cut fruit. You could put some fresh bananas, some fresh blueberries. And like, there's just something about eating with a spoon that's very satisfying. Yeah, it's,
I agree.
So we eat our smoothies actually with a spoon a lot. And we do fun toppings on them, when we're in the mood for that. Yeah. So that's breakfast. And then, really dependent on the day, if we're just going to play outside and we're going to have fun, I'm going to try to stretch them to lunch, honestly. And then make sure lunch is just either for us, it's sometimes it's a lot of times it is a salad, and then we might have leftovers from the dinner from our last night just because it's easy. Or I might make an egg, type base thing. Maybe it's scrambled eggs or boiled eggs. Or I might do some tuna out of some BPA-free cans. I mean, I'm just real here. I'm working mom too. I'm something fast and quick is best. Or it's some grilled, maybe it is some grilled chicken from the night before, or roasted vegetables that I've just had, and I'm just gonna either eat them cold because we love our leftovers cold, or we just warm them up. So.
And if I can just, it is ideal, again, every family's going to look different, but it is ideal to have your biggest meal at lunch. So that's the highest energy portion of the day. That's when your digestion is the strongest. That's when you have that's when you need the energy, okay, right?
So if
lunchtime.
Anybody wants to
not
follow
dinner time.
along, this is the page I'm on. It looks like this.
Okay. So dinner time.
Healthy meal ideas.
Breakfast and dinner are ideally lighter, and lunch is your biggest meal of the day, ideally.
So dinner here, let me just jump to snacks. So a lot of times we like to snack as Americans. We're just big snackers, right? I think it depends on your family and how your meals are structured. But if you're going to have a more heavier meal, I would say just cut the snacks out. If you're gonna just do like a smoothie for dinner and that's what your meal's gonna be, yeah, sure, maybe have a snack or two, but make your snacks, I personally just make my snacks fruit. Sometimes they get a little heavier. They might be cucumbers with some sea salt and some homemade dip, things like that. But fruit is the easiest. It really is. And we do on the go snacks sometimes we'll pack some trail mix or something like that, but honestly, fruit is the easiest for us.
And look at the food combining principles, because there is food combining rules to fruit. It's not just a free-for-all. You can mess that up. You always want to keep fruit alone.
Yeah, so that's on this page. So fruit is not combined with other things that would impair the digestion. So you wouldn't want to have like strawberries and steak together.
Strawberries and steak. That sounds weird.
That just doesn't feel good in your body. It's because the steak's going to take a lot longer to digest, where the fruit just wants to pass right through.
Right.
And so when you can't digest the fruit, when you're trying to digest the meat and the fruit can't pass through, that's when you get all that fermentation, gas, bloating, and things like that.
I see you wrote Protein XM. Is that a protein powder you give your kids?
Yeah, it's actually the U.S. Enzymes
Protein
protein.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
Sorry. I've been given like Vega. Is that not good either?
Vega's fine, but and there's some things that came out about Vega that were questionable about the heavy metals and stuff. And so, we still sell it, and I don't know where they're at with that, but we really like the protein zyme. I mean, it's so smooth, so clean, tastes good. It hardly feels like you even had to digest it.
Is that plant-based, like a pea protein
Yep.
and stuff? Okay.
Yep, it's a blend of things, but it's mainly pea, plant protein. Yep.
Yeah.
Very good.
So, I just gave you guys a list of some of our snacks, but really fruit is the easiest and what we do. And then we might bring in, if I'm going to the summer's always like on the go because you're going to the pool or you're going to the zoo or you're going for a walk or a hike or a picnic or wherever. So I do bring in some of like the store-bought type snacks, but we definitely don't do anything that has any of those wonky ingredients. We try to keep it super clean. We have found a few brands that we like. Simple Mills is a brand that's out there that makes almond flour crackers that are really clean. We do Simple Mills is the name of it, and they actually sell them at Costco. But we also do like make our own trail mix. We kind of just try to choose what nuts and seeds that we like, and we do add a little dried fruit. We try to keep that to a minimum in the mix. It's just the highlight. It's not the main part. So those are just some quick things that we do. Anything else that you wanted to highlight? So dinner again. So I would like to say that the principle that I think about for my meals is 80-20. I'm shooting for 80% of the meal to be vegetable based, and then 20% might be my starch, that's a whole grain, or my protein that is going to be more of a leaner protein, just because that's what we've found works best for our family. So it might be a fish, or it might be chicken, or a turkey. Yes, did you have a question?
Yeah. just thinking about this because I hadn't heard anything about grains, and I was like, I love my crackers, right? I love my corn chips. Have you guys dealt with like your own emotional attachment to food? Has it been a struggle, or do you have any advice for people who might have emotional attachments, like comfort foods and things like that?
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah. You want me to touch that one? I mean, I don't really know what he's talking about here.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Hold on. I got to repeat it for the camera because we're laughing so much. He asked about the emotional attachment to food, and have we dealt with the emotional attachment to food? And we all love our
really
crunchy, munchy things that we like. I don't know. Do you want to?
I'm sorry. I'm just goofing with you right now.
No, it's such a huge topic, and I feel like it's on people's hearts and it's on the Lord's heart, and I think that's kind of why it's funny. It's because it's real, and the Lord wants to deal with it, and He wants to deal with it in us, and He wants to get it out of us.
Yeah.
And so it's a big deal.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Yeah.
So, do you want to say anything else?
I mean, honestly, like the wrestle that I have with food is constantly like the Lord just saying, where is your comfort? Am I your comfort, or is food your comfort? And when I find myself shifting and I'm not running to Him and I'm running to the cupboard and I'm just wanting to dull, because for what I walk through, what I personally, my journey has been chaos. Let's just shove it all down. Let's just shut it all down right now so I can just put that smile on. And we're just going to pretend that it's not happening. And food is really helpful to do that. And I think many of us just use that food to sedate us. We feel the anxiety rise up. We feel the fear rise up. We feel out of control. Whatever that, emotional kind of pattern is that we struggle with, we just want to shut it down. And food is really good at doing that. And it kind of diverts us away from that feeling and puts us into a new feeling. And as long as we stay in those patterns, we never get to address the root issue. And so, like, I'm turning 40 this year, and it's just been really a monumental, year for me, where the Lord's taking me deeper into areas of my life that I haven't, really laid over into Him and His leadership, And so He's taking me deeper in those places, and He's going, now, Jen, as we go there, you have to stay with me. Don't run off as it gets hairy, and start jumping into old patterns. And so it takes intentionality, and it takes slowing down. And it's hard when we run hard and you're going crazy and you 100 miles an hour. There's days at the end of the day, and it's like, I don't have the desire to sit before the Lord and give Him everything that's on my chest. I just kind of want to sit down with some almond milk. I mean, it's like crazy. It's like, I'm just going to have some almond milk and just sit here for a moment. But even though almond milk's healthy and nutritious and it's not dairy, whatever, it still can become that idol and that crutch. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I heard a sermon one time that basically said, if you analyze your life and you think about when you have a difficult situation, a stressful situation, an emotional thing come up, the first thing you go to, if it's not the Lord, is your idol. Especially if you go back over and over and over to that thing. And I think most of us could admit that food has been one of those idols in our lives. Mm-hmm. And again, sorry, we didn't mean to laugh at that, but it's I'll just be really honest, and I know Jen would say the same thing. It's like in my journey, what I've been called to, and we've been called to as a couple, is a lifestyle of prayer, fasting, purity, what we're all called to. And I've gotten to some deep, deep places through cleansing and through fasting. And I've come out of those places sometimes, and it didn't look pretty. And I came out of fasts that look really ugly. And I keep hitting stumbling blocks. And I know the stumbling blocks is the emotions. And I feel like that's where the Lord's going to lead us to next, is how do we deal with these emotions? How do we get these out? How do we give these to the Lord? How do we work through these issues so that we don't keep coming up with stumbling blocks to get deeper into being one with the Lord? And so the Lord's going to take us through that, and I'm going to have to choose to go through the emotional struggles. I'm going to have to choose it. And it might mean digging up old stuff and old memories and crying about things. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know that's a big phase of our journey that we haven't fully uncovered, that in a place that we're headed. So,
but I think what I want to springboard into real quick is that I think that we can, as the heads of our household and leading our children, our goal would be that we would help them to see how to create healthy relationships with food. And that they wouldn't be the crutch, and that we would model it for them. And that's my challenge to myself, that I would model this for my girls, that I would model a healthy relationship with food, and that it wouldn't be so strict that it feels, restrictive and
like a prison.
like, and it's like there's this, kind of yo-yo going back and forth, but that we can appreciate food, we can celebrate with food, but then we also understand and use the knowledge that food is energy for our bodies, and there's a certain level that food stops becoming a help, but it starts becoming a hindrance. And that's what the goal of, I want to teach my kids this. I want to teach them how to view food. What is it really doing in their body, and what is it for? It's not just for pleasure, because I think that's what kids are growing up with, is that food is fun and food is pleasure. And if it doesn't fit that model, then I don't want it. And that's what's taking us into this sickness and disease.
Yeah, amen. And one question we get a lot is, how do you do it in the world today? How do you do it at church? You go to church and they want to give your kids goldfish and Teddy Grahams at church. There's just no understanding of nutrition in our world. So it's like, how do you go to parties? How do you go to functions? How do you go to church? How do you do that? I think we have to fight for our children. I think you talk to the leadership and the people there, but most importantly, you train your children. Because you train them that what you're doing is you're actually sanctifying them from the world and unto God. And that's not a bad thing. Okay? You want to be a part of the popular culture, you're going to suffer with and struggle with all the same things as the popular culture, because this world belongs to, the enemy, not God. And so it's part of the sanctification process, and it's not easy convincing a teenager not to eat pizza with his friends. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard, but I think the younger you can get them and the more you can instill to them at a young age they want to honor their body, they want to honor God, they want to steward their body, we always use this, we're going to try to use this example tomorrow. You want to jump higher and run faster and be stronger and do everything God called you to do. You're not going to get there eating junk food. You're not going to. We tell our girl, she's really into her hair. You want your hair to grow really strong? Eat your fruits and vegetables. You'll grow strong hair. If you eat junk food, you won't. That makes sense to her. You know what I mean? We have to teach our kids the right way young.
So I don't know what our time is, but we probably should need to wrap it.
It's 5:30.
Yeah. So anyway, hopefully you guys can just peek through this. I gave you guys my 10 dinners that don't break the bank, just some ideas for you guys. But I think that 80-20 is a really good kind of mindset for just that healthy diet, kind of keeping things clean. And then you'll find ways and times where you might try to shift into that healing stage with selective children if you're having major issues, or yourself, because I think that that's when you'll see the big breakthrough.
And like I said, don't feel like it has to be all or nothing, because that healing diet we talked to, do it for 7 days, do it for 10 days, do it for 2 weeks. You don't have to try to live there when it's really hard.
Yeah, or just oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Interrupt you. Or just try to do it for the majority of the day and have one meal that feels more sustaining.
Right.
Which is actually what we do a lot.
Yeah. And when I work with people with illnesses, that's actually something I try to get them to do if they're willing to do it, is to fast all day on fruit mainly. If you can do all fruit, great. If you need to do a few vegetables, fine. But fast all day on just fruit or fruit and vegetables, and have one evening meal with your family. And that might be some steamed vegetables or a sweet potato, or if you're eating meat and you want a little chicken or fish, okay. But you're fasting during the day on living foods and having one meal at night. It is easily sustainable. In our minds, we think, oh my gosh, that's hard, or I'm not going to get enough food, or I'm not going to have enough energy. You'll be shocked how you've never felt better. I've had people on juice fast going, do I ever have to eat again? Because I haven't felt this good in 20 years. I haven't had this more energy since you know when. I put a couple on a 21-day citrus fast because he had 4th stage kidney disease. And I said, well, how did you feel during the 21 days? We had so much energy, we decided to go do our garden. We were hauling dirt and we were doing all this stuff. And then they start eating again, they start feeling bad again. So my question is like, why did you stop? You know what I mean? So it's like we can work towards this place. It's going to be a process, and that's okay. But we can get our kids there quicker. And one thing I heard, I just want to end with this. I heard from a sermon I heard just the other day, is with our children, we're trying to figure all this stuff out. In the spirit and also in the physical and with the emotions. Let our ceiling be our children's baseline floor. Okay? Let's get ourselves as high as we can get with our very limited understanding, because we don't have the knowledge of the Lord. But let us get the best we can ceiling, and let that be our children's base foundation so that they can go higher with the Lord. Amen? I'm in it. I preach it. Come on. Oh, last question.
Through your different pregnancies,
Sure.
did you notice a difference with your milk supply? I mean, I guess not your pregnancies, but once
that's a
you
great
deliver,
question.
like, with the really fatty foods and then just milk.
Will
Because
you
I've
repeat
heard
it?
that people, when they go on Whole30, like, their milk supply drops or different things like that. So I didn't know what your...
Sure. So the question is if I noticed any change or difference in my breast milk supply in all my 3 different children based on, because I did kind of different diets in all 3. So interestingly, with my first, I had what they consider overproduction. I had so much milk, I didn't know what to do with it.
That was the Weston A. Price days.
I was coming out of, I mean, I could have probably had triplets, okay? I would, so much milk, but it wasn't a good thing. She couldn't get to the hind milk. She actually had green stools because she could never get to the fatty milk. She only could get the top. By the time she got to the fatty, she was like, I'm done, sister. I'm done. And then I couldn't even get her on the other side. One breast would just fill her to the max. I mean, it was so much milk. I was like, where is all this coming from? And then with my second, it actually normalized very, very quickly. And honestly, between my second and third, I haven't seen a whole lot difference. I feel like they've been about the same and have had no issues with overproduction. So it's funny, or
and
under.
Even now, eating a vast majority of fruits and vegetables, and really only eating meat when she feels like, oh, I could use some salmon. Okay, great. We don't make a big, oh, great, have some salmon. Whatever.
Yeah.
But she has noticed no drop in her milk supply.
And actually, if you read, there's 3 stages of breastfeeding, and so they consider the colostrum the first. When your milk first comes in is the second, and the third is the more maintenance phase. And what they really believe is that it's actually supply and demand. And so it's based on how often you nurse, not so much sure you could mess it up with diet and, do horrible diet and your hormones could be completely horrible. But for the majority of women, I find that if they don't do pacifiers, if they nurse on demand, if they co-sleep in the beginning and they're close to their child for quick feedings at night, I find you get by 6 months a solid milk supply that you can just sustain, and I just have always nursed on demand, and I think that's really good. Now scheduled feedings and pumping, and you start bringing all that in, that can affect honestly your ability to get good milk supply, I believe. So
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys. Hope to see everybody tomorrow. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So if you have young children, some highlights for tomorrow is we have a play at 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock called Building Your Castle.
Oh, and if you know Rachel and Walese, it's going to be hilarious.
There's a tricky dragon. He's going to trick the princess into eating the junky food. They're going to get build her bad castle, her junky bricks, and then we're going to have the good food, and it's going to be awesome. You guys it's going to be fun. So
bounce house.
Yep, then there's a little concert at 12:30. So, so 11 will be,
there's
and 2.
There's a schedule out there, so if you guys want to check that out. Awesome.